You can bypass this and put it on the keynote presentation called "The Pen is Mightier Than the Sword." So the ideas, oh, thank you. I just received a note. It's a little serious. Some news has just come in that the material world is a place of misery. Thank you for delivering that. So, how do you like the title so far?
Great.
It's all right? What do you like about it? Catchy? Anything else? Yes? Yes? Srila Prabhupada came, wrote so many books. Where's the extra mic, by the way? Okay, there it is. Here. Wow, that was beautiful. You're going to have to say it again, though.
I feel like Srila Prabhupada came to America and wrote and translated like the Bhagavad Gita in English, and that was like his sword for us here that didn't really have that knowledge from the Prabhupada source.
Beautiful. What is your name?
Naomi.
Naomi. Thanks a lot, Naomi. When's the first time you read Prabhupada's books? Give her the mic back.
I live at the Krishna house, so I've been studying them.
But what's the first time? Was the first time you actually opened a book? The gain's a little high. It needs to come down somehow.
2 years ago, my mother met the devotees before me, so they had stuffed her up in their house, and I picked it up there.
They did what with it?
My mother met the devotees before me, and so when I came and visited her, I saw she had read the Gita. So
oh my goodness! So your mom got the book, and then it was waiting for you when you came.
Yeah.
And which book was it?
The Bhagavad Gita.
And what was it like? What did you see the first time?
I think what really got me was the fact of reincarnation. It was actually explained and made a whole bunch of sense, and it made me want to look into it even more.
Did you immediately pick it up? Did you see the picture on it first? What did you do?
I pretty much moved into the temple the second time I met the devotees.
But the first time you read the book, you looked at the pictures or you looked at the text? What did you do? Was it readable?
It was a little bit of both. I read, and then I saw a picture of Krishna, and he was handsome.
There it is. Wow. That tells us a lot about you. It's pretty esoteric. Okay. Thanks, Naomi. You found it easy to read, though, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not leading the witness, but she said yes. Fantastic. Anybody else? What does this title mean to you? Oh, listen to this. This is good.
There are many revolutions that happen based on war.
Revolutions. Where are you from?
From Columbus, Ohio.
Any revolutions out there?
Yeah, when I first read, I was very depressed, and I was looking for some solace in my life, and I read the words of Krishna gave me great solace.
Where'd you get it?
I got it in, so my uncle is a life member, and we went to Bombay.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be in every room has a Bhagavad Gita, so I just opened it and I started reading it at night.
Which part did you read first?
The 18th chapter, where Krishna is
You
talking.
turn right to the 18th chapter. Sarvadharman parityaja. And here you are.
Yeah, so, and I had read some Bhagavad Gitas before, but they seemed like dry and impersonal. But when I read Prabhupada's course, it was very struck a chord. Like,
Oh, thank you very much for sharing that. That's very moving. Anybody else from this side of the room? We've got to keep moving the energy from side to side. Here we go. What does the title mean to you?
Hare Krishna. I think the title, the thought that it evokes in me is that, pen, words, they can pierce your consciousness, but a storage, this is your body. In our body, as we all know, we change our body, we change our clothes. So your consciousness sticks with you lifetime to lifetime. But if you just get pierced with the storage, you may die, but you might not even know about it in the next life. So your consciousness sticks with you.
That's profound and realized knowledge, and the enough information for a sonnet or some beautiful poem you could write. That's very nice. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All the way in the back. Sankarshan. Oh, right here and then in the back. Sankarshan in the blue.
To me, it sounds like sword is a negative word which can always kill, but a pen can put your positive thoughts in writing, and that can always be passed on generation to generation. So definitely a pen is definitely a more stronger word than a sword or a thing, and so it's all like that.
I like that very much. People are a little bit weary of all these weapons and things like that. Such a powerful instrument, the pen, huh? Wonderful. Yes, Sankarshan.
Prabhupada said, referred to his books as a Brihat Redanda. It's a big Redanda that we distributed more widely than just the plain Redanda. So that's when I see that title, that's what I thought of.
Thank you very much. So when I was writing this book which we finally called Our Family Business, this phrase came into my mind about the pen is mightier than the sword, and I wrote a chapter about it. And I really liked writing this chapter because in general I was talking about books and their power, and not even specifically Prabhupada's books. I was looking at the history of books themselves and just what effect they've had on civilization and how much they're adored by people all over the world. And what to speak of civilizations past who wrote books in whatever way they could without the present technology. So that's why I decided to present this particular segment to you today, because it's something that I think about a lot and that I like myself. Thanks for sharing your ideas about what it means to you. Sometimes in our movement, of course, we emphasize the distribution of books, and sometimes it's good to remember why we're doing it. And one of the demotivating points for book distribution is when we might think that perhaps it's an outdated strategy. Sometimes people say, well, you've distributed so many books, where's the effect? Or people don't really read anymore, or books are obsolete, only the electronic media is important, and so forth. Have you ever heard any of these? And I've heard them also. When I travel around to talk about book distribution, I often find that devotees, when I talk to them, have maybe some subtle doubts about going out to distribute books because they think that maybe they're not as effective as other ways of preaching and so forth. So, looking into it a little more carefully, I found that research that's going on now all points to the fact that books aren't going away. In fact, they're as popular as they ever were, and in some places more than ever. And that although electronic media is expanding, the book is not going away. Of course, there are certain segments of people in society who are reading a little bit less than they used to. But the book itself is very popular still. Here's a quote from a researcher. Oh, excuse me, this is from The Economist. Who has the other mic? Could you please hand it over? Would you please read that out loud?
Publishers now expect most of their sales to remain in print books for decades to come. some say forever. In comments with ours.
Fairly recent article. Things haven't changed much since that was written. I met recently also in Chennai a person in the industry of electronic books, and I said, so seriously, what's the situation regarding printed books compared to e-books? And he said, from our research, the printed book is not going away. Although there's increase in electronic books, still they don't foresee in the industry that the book is going to go away anytime soon. I said, 10 years? He said, no way. 20 years? Probably not. So everything that I've been reading and studying about the subject matter points to the fact that books are here to stay. Interesting perspective about the smallest bookstore. And please read this quote.
The smallest bookstore still contains more ideas of worth than have been presented in the entire history of television.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
What did you like about it? Huh?
Probably accurate.
Can you pass them the mic? We have Kumbh Mela upstairs. Those are elephants. Okay.
It's probably accurate.
Why do you think it's accurate? In your experience, just your realization?
Because television is full of junk. You have to put forth effort to learn something cool, but whereas television, you just sit there.
You have to put forward a little effort in reading a book. Television, you just sit there. Okay. Any other thoughts about the difference between the book, concentrated knowledge in a bookstore compared to the history of television? Yeah.
Makes you think. And whereas television is just mindless entertainment, you sit there on a couch like a potato, and you don't learn anything. Just mindless entertainment.
Mindless entertainment. Okay. We have lots of devotees checking in here.
Just one thing that if you're reading a book and you're just reading whatever book, if you watch with television, half the time it's the program, half the time it's advertisements. So it's not like it's a work.
Okay. Sometimes, and Urmila's right back there. I asked somebody one time, can you be radical? Can you not?
I disagree with that statement.
Okay.
You know, as a Gurukul teacher, one of the things I did was review books to decide what I want to give the children to read. So I read thousands of books. And I will tell you that the vast majority of books are trash. And therefore, just because it's a bookstore doesn't mean it has one idea of worth. Simply because it's ink on paper rather than people running around on television, acting on television, doesn't mean that it has intrinsically more value simply because the media is different. So the vast majority of books also have no ideas of it.
Can I be radical? I disagree. I think that the concentration of knowledge, which is being referred to here, is far greater in books for many of the reasons that the devotees mentioned. And when people pick up books, at least, although there may be some disbursement of knowledge that's a little bit different in the various books that we're talking about, there's a way in which one can enter deeply within the particular subject matter that's contained within the two walls of the book. And that's partly what's being talked about here, is the power of concentration in the books as compared to television. And I think that's what the person who mentioned this had to say about, or was saying about the book itself. Any more? Yes.
The book is the premier media for sharing ideas for thousands of years, and all the greatest thinkers throughout those periods focused on the book as the way to share their highest thoughts, whereas television is a media form that's been developed to create the servile society that we're living in today.
Interesting. Thank you. Nice perspective. Although the motivations may be different in presenting television. Say it again?
It's designed to make you think something rather than think about something.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's an interesting conversation, and it kind of brings attention to the medium of the book in general, and there are different ideas and opinions about books. But in general, books are containers. I think about this. I need a book to show you. This is a little container. When you think about books, sometimes it's easy to take it for granted and just say, oh, it's just a book, because books are so readily available in the world today. But when we pick up a book, and of course we can look at any object, and if we look at it carefully and think what's its purpose, then we can appreciate it a little bit more. There's so many things in life that we can take for granted. So a book is one thing that we can actually look at and appreciate very deeply, and that's what I'm trying to do here today. And think about a book as a container. And what does it contain? It contains idea seeds. Ideas are subtle seeds, and when they go into people's minds and hearts, it affects them. It's a way that living beings who are very interested in knowledge, they have this chit potency. There's a way in which they're eager for knowledge. In fact, you go anywhere and you look at how people are consuming information in whatever way they can. They're reading, and they're looking at screens, trying to take in something. So the Tatastha Jiva, the living entity, is described as being between the material and spiritual world. So the living entity can be in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. So my feeling or definition of the jiva is open to suggestion. Any living entity that you meet anywhere in the universe is open to suggestion. Means that whatever ideas flow into the mind and heart of a particular person will affect him or her to think in a certain way. So here's a few thoughts about ways in which the world has been changed by the written word. Let me ask if any of you on this retreat happen to bring with you a copy of The Origin of the Species. Do you have it maybe on your nightstand, in your cabin or room, wherever you're staying? Anyone? Yes, you have a copy?
I have a college course on it.
You have a college course on it. Okay. Do you have the book?
No, I don't have it.
Okay. At home, though, somebody has the book, right? Urmila, you don't have it? Okay. If she doesn't have it, it's probably not available. Okay, so how many of you here have heard of evolution? Raise your hand. So, wonder how that happened. The book's not around very much. You don't see people reading it. But if you talk to people wherever you go and ask them about evolution, what do you think about evolution? How many people do you think will be at least aware of the idea, the basics of it? How many? Everyone. Okay. So anywhere you go around the world, people have some basic idea of this philosophy, this ideology. Where did it come from? It came from a book, because books are
A container.
and what's inside? And when those seeds spill out, they go into people's minds, they go into their hearts, and they develop a certain kind of ideology. And the reason that living beings can be affected like that is because living beings are... You got to work with me a little bit here. Living beings are? Do you find that to be true? Yeah. Living beings are open to suggestion. And that's why people take the trouble to write things down and make them available, because they will affect the way they think. Here's another example. There are economic systems around the world that people will fight and die for. And where do those ideas come from? For instance, in this book, Adam Smith wrote various ideas about the way economic systems work around the world, and to this day they pervade the teachings on particular ways, ideologies about economic systems in the world. In Cuba, according to history, Fidel Castro, while in prison, wrote down his ideas and smuggled them out of jail. His wife would come and visit him in jail, and he wrote down the ideas in lime juice, which is invisible until you reconstitute it by exposing to the sun. And once it's reconstituted, you can read the letters on the page. And his wife Mitra put together a compilation of these writings. They were made into a little book, and that was distributed to the masses. And according to the histories, that was what laid the foundation for the revolution in Cuba. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni says, Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abhatyavatyapi namanyanantasya yashon kitaniya shinvanti gayanti grinanti sadavaha. That the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to create a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. And he goes on to say, Namanyanantasya, it's full of these divine seeds, the names. We call these various mantras that we chant, that contain the names of God. They're seeds, they're bijas. And those seeds, Namanyanantasya yashonkitaniya, they are powerful enough to enter into the minds and hearts of people in the material world and awaken them to their spiritual prospect. So this writing of books that's gone on by the great Vaishnava acharyas was for the same purpose of spreading spiritual seeds around the world so that people could wake up their pure love for God. It's a different kind of revolution altogether, don't you think?
Yes.
Thank you, Nirkula. In the American colonies, an author, Thomas Paine, wrote a little booklet called Common Sense, and he sold it. It went for a little donation. And people all over the colonies read this booklet, and again, according to historians, because of the ideas within it, they rose up and had a revolution to start America. So, the Bible itself has been very effective at spreading the knowledge and ideology of the Christian faith all over the world. And there are staggering statistics about how rapidly Christianity spread after the printing of the Bible took place. Now, you'll see on this side a handwritten scroll, and how long do you suppose it would take to copy down the Bible by hand? Has anybody tried that? How long do you think it would take, Javi? Years. Okay. And then we know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had the Brahma Samhita and the Krishna Karnamrita copied by hand. There were scribes. Mukunda Datta, who was specialized in this studies of ancient scrolls, told me that many of the scribes were illiterate. They simply, for a living, would copy things down. Oftentimes they would make a mistake and write the same line twice. They'd have to start over again. It's tedious work, isn't it? Copying by hand. And then a movable type came in, the Gutenberg Bible. A man named Gutenberg invented a way to print Bibles in mass quantity. At least compared to our standards nowadays, there wasn't that many Bibles at first, but it was enough to make a difference, movable type. So the Bibles were coming out in rapid succession. And then there were other Bible societies that came up with better technologies, and then thousands and thousands of Bibles started coming out and going all over the world. And because of that, people were reading it and becoming acquainted with the idea of the Christian faith. So we have the best work in the world. We are part of a sampradaya. The word sampradaya actually means a bequeathment, something that's being bequeathed to us, been passed down to us from a higher level, being given to us by a benefactor. And what is it that's being passed down specifically? What is it that we're getting? And also, what is it that we're giving? It's the best of occupations to have something of utmost value to give to people all over the world. It's one thing to give, it's another thing to receive. People don't always appreciate the gift that they're being given. But to be absolutely certain about our work and to have complete knowledge of and faith in what we're passing on, what we're giving to people, gives great impetus to pass it on. And so the sampradaya, first of all, this bequeathment, as I mentioned before, goes on and has been going on for many centuries, millennia. And we see here the Sri Brahma Samhita. Who in this room can sing a shloka from the Brahma Samhita? Okay. Abhi. Wait, give him the microphone so he can belt it out. He can stand up.
Ananda Chinmaya Sarutva Vigrahasya Advaita Chitta Manani Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayoganam Cha Vedeshu Dura Vamadura Vamahma Bhakto Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajam.
Big hand. I learned the Brahma Samhita when I was a brahmachari, and I had to take a flight from San Francisco to Honolulu. And on the flight, they had a talent show. They invited any of the passengers to get up in the front of the plane and present whatever talent they had, and then there would be a group of judges, and then they got prizes. So I got up and I chanted the Brahma Samhita for everyone on the plane. And there were a few others that were brave enough to get up there. What? Did you win? I won. And what I won was 2 tickets to the Botanical Gardens in Hawaii. And I went there with Shaori. We went there and looked at all the plants, and it was beautiful. There was also a break dancer, and there was an old guy that was telling really bad jokes. So the competition wasn't much, but people were fascinated that there was some kid up there singing Sanskrit in the front of the plane. And that's kind of amazing, actually. Where did that come from? Similarly, once when I was in Santa Cruz, California, which is the home of the homeless vegan. I call it that because it's the weirdest place on earth. It's very affluent, a lot of mode of goodness, a lot of mode of ignorance also. A lot of homeless people there. One day, when we were distributing books, we were also passing out prasadam. And I offered a cookie to one of the homeless people coming by with a shopping cart. And he kind of looked at it, turned up his nose, and he said, "No thanks, I'm a vegan." That's the first homeless vegan I've ever met. So